This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Manheim causes... Wait a second, I did this one already.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that was kicked out of the Federation for unethical podcasting. My name is Gep, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend and co-host, Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And this week, I'm having trouble remembering, because we've been recording these like, for the last several months. This is either Picard is horny, take 1, or take 2. I'm mixing these up.
Well, this is the one where he's not infected by a virus, at the very least. So maybe take 2, technically?
Yeah. This is Picard's mysterious past that we get weird, kind of strange looks at here and there because they never decided what it was.
Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we're gonna have some lost loves, and we're gonna have some dating later, and Crusher's just gonna be there, just shaking her head the entire time, being disappointed, you know. Yeah.
So this is the episode called "We'll Always Have Paris," which, of course, is a Casablanca reference.
So, are we going to be hanging out in, like, North Africa or something?
I guess it could be North Africa planet. No, we don't see much of it.
True. It's mostly just, like, bunker scenes, I guess.
It's just particularly in reference, of course, to the love triangle thing or whatever. I haven't seen that movie in frickin' years. I barely remember it, so...
Indeed.
I assume there was a love triangle.
Yes,
and a bar.
What are the classics? Also. Yeah. There's oh my gosh, I'm shocked to find out that there's gambling going on in this establishment. Here's your winnings, sirs. Thank you.
Now we've got 2 writers this time. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like this episode needed 2 writers. But that's just me being salty today.
Yeah.
It was written by Deborah Dean Davis. It's the best alliterative name. I don't know if that's a pen name, but I love it.
Yeah, Deborah here has written a number of other things, including a bunch of other 80s stuff, including Fantasy Island, oddly enough, Magnum P.I., Studio 5B.
Yep, Incredible Hulk, Knight Rider, all that 80s junk.
Yes, and I believe this is her only Star Trek credit here.
I believe so, yeah. And also co-written by Hannah Lewis Shear, who worked on When the Bow Breaks and did some work on Coming of Age and Skin of Evil. They are going to write 2 more TNG episodes and a DS9 episode later on.
Yes, I believe she's credited as story for Pen Pals, which is the episode where Data gets a pen pal of sorts, and then they do some unethical things to her. And then The Price, which... involves some wormhole shenanigans and sets up an episode of Voyager, oddly enough. Yeah.
Because Voyager was like, oh my god, how do we do we can't cross over anything. Wait a minute, there was that one episode.
Well, we'll get this out of our interest or our availability pretty early here in like season 2 or 3, I think it was. It's like, Ferengi show up, and it's confusing, but there's another, we might get home suddenly plot, because we just happen to stumble across this place.
Like they do. It's like, oh my god, are they going to get home? Well, let's see, it's halfway through season 3, so probably not.
Now, it would have been kind of interesting if Voyager had gotten home, and then they were like, okay, we're in the post-Dominion War era, and we don't really know how to fit in here. And so they get kind of sent out again for a while, as because they're unable to cope with like how the Federation's change, and there could have been an interesting plot line in there. But anyway,
yeah. But that Voyager wasn't for interesting plot line.
It was hit the reset button, and it doesn't matter how exploded we were. We're back to normal the next week, and we can do something else.
So this is a sort of bodily episode. We don't have a lot of other stuff going on, so we've only got a few guest stars. We have Michelle Phillips, who plays Janice Manheim. She's best known as doing voiceovers in the and the quartet, the Mamas and the Papas. She trained in acting in the 70s, got nominated for several awards for her role in the film Dillinger, which I haven't seen, but I've slightly heard of.
And she was still acting as of, I think 2006, because her last credit is like technically 2009, but it's for something called Svik, which is from 1993, so I'm a little confused there. But she was also in a spattering of episodes of various things in the 2000s, going on back to, I guess, 80s, 70s, yeah. So, kind of one of those guest actors that shows up all the time.
All those kinds of things. Fantasy Island, TJ Hooker, we know the drill. Yeah.
Yeah. Let It Ride, Burke's Law, 919 Fifth Avenue, 7th Heaven.
Rod Looms is playing Paul Manheim, the husband of Janice Manheim. This is important. Stupid reasons, but it's important for the episode. His best known sci-fi role was as Sigmund Freud in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He's also appeared in General Hospital, The Beastmasters, Dynasty, Quantum Leap, and eventually Stargate SG-1.
Yes, as Osric. I don't think I remember that episode.
Someone told me what the episode was, I might remember
The Quest Part 1 in Season 10, which I believe is the stuff where they're looking for Merlin's lost doohickey to kill the Ori.
Well, it's the first one where they went to find the lost doohickey.
Yeah.
It's before they figure out that they're looking for a doohickey.
Yes.
So if he's Osric, then I think he might be the librarian guy. Maybe. That would make sense.
It's been a while since I've seen. Yeah,
there was also
it's been a couple years since
mayor
I've seen
that
that.
looked familiar in that episode.
There's also a dragon, I think.
Yeah.
He was also in Webster as Professor.
And finally, we have a couple things, but the only other notable person in here is Isabel Lorca playing young Janice, or Gabrielle as she's credited, but she's definitely young Janice on the holodeck.
Yes. It's like the holodeck read Picard's mind, and you're like, yeah, we have to have this sort of character in here, even though this is just sort of a generic recreation of part of France. Okay.
She actually has one of the more robust filmographies of people that we've had on this. She has film roles in The Power Game, Desperately Seeking Susan, and The Pickup Artist, and on shows like ER. In the 90s, she transitioned over into being a personal trainer for other actors, which is kind of fun.
Homicidos. Sadios?
Never heard of it.
Am I on the looking at the Spanish version of IMDb?
Yeah, that's everybody. We've got girl husband, and younger girl.
And I guess there's also the Major D who is in Days of Our Lives. John Paul Vignon.
Sounds likely, yeah. He only has one or two lines.
Yes. Here's your table. Have some wine.
It's okay. Jumping in. The Enterprise is en route to get a break and shore leave and R&R and such. It's great.
Excellent.
Picard started a little bit early because he's fencing in the gym. Fencing has changed in the last 100 years with this, because I did some fencing in college, and I don't know what this is.
This is future fencing.
They appear to be using half epee rules while they're using sabers, but only going for foil targets. It's very confusing. They definitely do a couple of illegal maneuvers.
Oops.
You're definitely not allowed to grab the other person.
Well, it's maybe it's Federation rules. Maybe the I don't know, the Tellarites are like, you need to be able to grab their foil. Like, what?
So anyway, yeah, anybody who knows fencing, this is ridiculous looking, but I thought that was fun. They do a couple of fencing maneuvers and then repeat themselves immediately. Deja vu-y, the glitch in the Matrix, etc.
Wow, dude, we just already did this, man.
Picard calls the bridge. They've experienced exactly the same thing, so it's not isolated to the gym. That would be interesting.
If you fence too hard and incorrectly, you'll have a time loop.
So, still in his fencing gear, Picard heads up to the bridge where they're receiving a distress signal from a Dr. Paul Manheim with a set of coordinates. Picard's familiar with Manheim because he left with a group of other scientists to work on theories about time and gravity, none of which are widely accepted by the wider scientific community.
Yeah, in this century, they don't believe in general relativity anymore.
Well,
clearly.
They've broken it so much. So
yes. So it's now just a passing fad that they've grown beyond, and so someone doing research to it and linking space and time together again, that's just like forbidden knowledge, man.
So Picard goes out to change out of his fencing gear, and Troy stops him to say he's being way too emotional about whatever's going on with Manheim. And, he tends to suppress these things, and you might want to stop that. It's going to go bad.
Yeah. I see you seem to be having some sort of emotional anything here, Captain. Don't do that, please. It's scaring the ensigns.
So Picard decides that he's going to go to the holodeck and look his past full on in the face.
Well, I guess this is one way to deal with strong emotions.
Yeah, this makes me dubious of, the kind of surveillance they have in the future. It's downright scary, because it says, make a Paris cafe exactly as it appeared 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm. On this specific day.
Yeah, he's a bit rude to the holographic waiter, but, it's fine, because it's a hologram. He demands a different table, then doesn't sit down, stares at the Eiffel Tower, then tells the waiter that 22 years ago he stood someone up here.
Well, I guess that's one way to endear yourself to a waiter you just insulted. I hope, hopefully they uncork the wine right in front of you so they can't spit in it,
He sits down and overhears two women at the next table, one of whom is waiting for a date, and her friend is insistent that the guy's not going to come. The holodeck's out on some stuff. Troy's in the corner, just beeping buttons over there.
Write me out of some episodes here. I'll show you some, trouble.
So the friend leaves, and Picard is called out for staring, which, yeah, you shouldn't be staring, though she is wearing basically a napkin.
Yeah, like they got one of those sort of, shoulder strap dealies going on as far as the dress goes, but one of them just kind of completely off on her arm.
Yeah, this is one of those future sci-fi outfits that covers exactly what it needs to cover and not a single inch more.
Indeed. Which I guess that's something that's, agrees with the original series, I suppose.
So she gets upset and she goes, why would someone stand me up? I mean, look at me. Come on. And he's tries to explain for some reason. It's like, oh, maybe he's afraid of a relationship or didn't want to be tied down or et cetera, et cetera. Then he goes, enough of this self-indulgent nonsense. I'm done being emotional now.
I can't resolve anything right now. I have to hold on to this for years on end and have it be distracting plot points.
Yeah,
later.
I mean, you maybe shouldn't try to resolve your main character's core emotional issue 10 minutes into the episode.
Indeed.
I don't think it's going to work out well for him.
But I hope we have a good resolution on this at some point.
Back on the bridge, they've received word that other ships are having the same problem. Also a nearby farming colony. Time loops everywhere.
Dangerous hiccups causing mayhem.
They arrive at the coordinates they were sent to find a beacon with other coordinates, which goes to a remote non-binary system with a pulsar orbiting a Class B giant star. Is that a binary system or a trinary system? Is a pulsar just flashing, or is the pulsar two things that are also going around each other?
No. A pulsar is just a quickly spinning neutron star that emits a repetitive pulse of electromagnetic energy.
So it's a weird pulsar orbiting a giant star.
Yeah. Planetoid nearby.
So they arrive and detect a fortified facility on one of the planets. It's just force fielded all the heck.
So this must be either the secret base or, some Romulans are trying to set up a beachhead here, and we should be watching out for what's going on at, with the neutral zone and all that.
So they hail the planet. Picard is very reluctant to identify himself. This is the captain.
Yeah. Totally just the captain, no name. Don't worry about it. Anyway, how you doing?
They contact a woman named Janice, who turns off the force field so they can beam her and her husband up to sickbay. There, the man, Paul Manheim, is having a seizure. Dr. Crusher attends to him. Picard instantly is recognized, so there was no point not saying his name. It was...
Yes. Well, I guess at least it didn't, cause her to, keep the shields up or something like that, so they could bring her back, up to the ship and stuff. But, I guess that's maybe him not trusting her, not to have a terrible reaction to him showing up out of the blue.
I know. What was the thing? It's like, this is Picard. Oh, Picard, you stood me up once. You don't get to save my husband's life. I'm waiting for the next ship. Go away.
Well, I guess pettiness does have, infinite levels here. I guess. And, don't ask for my help again and later.
So, of course, this is Janice, the woman that he left behind in Paris. Aha. That the holodeck knew about somehow.
Oh, Janice, do you know you have a holographic doppelganger now?
So they go to Crusher's office. She explains that there's some sort of accident that killed everyone on the planet except for the two of them. Also, Manheim was, for some reason, really, really, really paranoid. It has a lot of security measures in place. And she doesn't really know what he was working on or what the accident was.
Wait a moment. Are there Klingon forces that are working on time travel experiments, trying to track you down and get all the information out of you so they can build a time travel device to let an Admiral Janeway in the future time travel?
Maybe. Yeah, we've got orders from an Admiral J. So Dr. Crusher takes Janice away to have some tests done, tells Picard that her husband is dying because his neurochemistry has been affected by something.
Yeah, just whatever. It's a something. It's a thingamajig.
On the way back to the bridge, the turbolift doors open for them to see themselves before they got onto the turbolift.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun little interaction here, because they're like, wait a moment, that's us. And then, we pick up not with the version that we had been following, but the version that just saw them on the turbolift.
It's a really fun way to do the time distortion-y stuff, and I wish they did that more often. Because you can start with the future events and then see the past events and then follow the past events to the future events.
Indeed. It would have been kind of funny if, instead of Picard kind of just giving up on it in the holodeck, starting getting a little time loop here, and he's like, "How's this getting annoying? I should probably actually deal with things."
So they scan the planet, and they find a second lab with a massive power source that's harnessing the nearby pulsar in some capacity.
There's some weird thing involving the pulsar and the giant interacting, and it generates energy inside the planet for some reason, somehow. And it's not well explained, and just kind of go with it, I guess.
So they tried to send an away team down, but they can't materialize, and they're barely able to pull them back up.
And they almost lose Worf.
Yeah, that's 2 security officers in a row. So these security measures are apparently going to be an actual problem.
A little bit, yes. So you have to figure out some way to get around them, or, so maybe we can bring the doctor out of it and say, hey, where can we go and not be dead?
So yeah, Manheim conveniently wakes up. He knows he's not okay, and he tells the doctor that he has touched another dimension. You probably shouldn't do that.
I'm both here and there, man. It's like I'm in multiple worlds.
Okay.
And I'm like,
let's stop microdosing geniuses. Yeah.
All right, what are you on? I'm on space-time, dude.
So Picard arrives with Data. Data knows all of Manheim's work, so he can explain, because Data, he's an exposition machine, very literally.
Yeah, I read it all this morning. It's fine.
So they use the energy from the pulsar to create a link between dimensions, but he also doesn't know that the time distortion expanded off of the planet, and if it's expanding, then they have to shut it down before it rips space-time apart.
Yeah, you don't want this, eating up a large section of the galaxy. They're just, an entire duplicate of our own, galaxy here in the same place, the same time, with easy access one way or the other. That's just going to cause all sorts of mayhem. Anyway, how's the mirror universe, the backwards dimension going?
Yeah, we could go to so many of these things. That'd be fun.
Yes.
So they can do this, they can shut this down, but they have to introduce an unstable element into the mechanism, and their timing has to be perfectly timed with the next distortion or it'll get worse.
All right, so we're going to send Gene Roddenberry in there, and he's going to take care of it, right?
So Manheim gives them coordinates to beam down. Before they can save the universe, they need to deal with how Picard stood someone up 20 years ago. It's much more important.
I guess.
Janice wants an explanation, but there's not one.
It's like, yeah, I just kind of chickened out. It's fine.
She's like, Picard, tell me that you got the wrong day or you couldn't get a cab or whatever. He's just like, nope, I was afraid of my feelings. And I needed to go to Starfleet. You're cute and all,
but, space.
Also, Troy checks on Dr. Crusher in case she's upset that another love interest has showed up because they still haven't decided whether she's a main love interest or not. That doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, I kind of wish it did, actually. It's like, don't have this sort of weird unresolved thing that we're just going to drop for a few years, then bring back up in, last season.
I know, what is this? It's just an excuse for Troy to get to do something this episode. So it's like, hey, are you okay? Yeah. Oh, okay then. Bye.
I guess the other extreme is Troy and Riker's relationship, or Riker's falling in love every 6 weeks, and Troy's just like, yeah, whatever.
Now to make matters even more weird, Manheim talks to Picard about how Janice is unhappy in their marriage, and if he dies, he should take care of her.
All right, we're going to make you not die, because, also, I'm on a spaceship now. Space!
Now, we can go save the damned universe. Now we're done with all of our interpersonal drama. We can keep space-time from tearing itself apart. Yes. How's that sound?
Just you have to deal with certain things, emotional beats, before you take care of the fractures in the space-time continuum, because otherwise you might have an unstable element, and that's why we're going to be only sending Data there, who doesn't have emotions.
Yep, Data heads down because he's less affected by time distortions.
Yeah.
He can't become disoriented the same
internal
way other
clock.
People can. So he beams down to the coordinates that Manheim gave him. He moves into the lab with a large energy beam in the middle, and he needs to wait for the next distortion to start so that he can poke it with a stick.
This stick might have a little bit of antimatter at the end, but, basically just poke it with a stick.
Mm-hmm. So Data approaches the distortion, Geordi counts down,
and so Data approaches the distortion, and Geordi counts down, and suddenly there's 3 Datas.
Yep, and then Data approaches the distortion while Geordi counts down.
And so we have the moment of too many Datas, and they need to figure out which one is the real one.
Yeah, and they don't really. They sort of go, which one of us is the correct one in the right timeline? And they all just think for a second, like, it's me.
All right, let's just do this then.
Okay, cool. We're not going to go, everyone compare chronometers, or we're going to give no explanation. Just go like, yeah, me, I'm it.
Data's good old 555 timer is going to save the day one way or the other, and just trust the middle Data to be correct about it.
It's a good thing he's not. It's a good thing his internal chronometer can't drift. So the 3 Datas combine back into one as the distortion stops. With that done, Manheim recovers completely because he's no longer stuck between universes. He's eager to return to the lab and finish up his work now that he's opened a door to another universe. He knows that he can do it safer next time, I suppose.
This is important research for a Star Trek Discovery plot that they'll not remember this episode for, so they won't touch upon it.
Janice is a bit disappointed that they're going back to the lab, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's just going to go back to live on a planet with a guy that barely pays her any attention, as you do.
Where all their friends died, presumably horribly.
Yes, and off-screen, double-wise, because they're on the other side of the planet, just doing their own thing in their own bunker, and,
Before they actually leave, Janice goes to the holodeck where Picard's waiting in the recreation of the cafe. Her doppelganger self is gone.
That's convenient.
That would be so funny. Yeah, he wants to say goodbye properly this time, so they toast and she walks out forever. But now I just want it to be the same scene I want them to be toasting and saying goodbye while their doppelganger's over this. Why isn't he showing up? Oh my god.
Computer, delete other characters.
You again. You were the one who was staring at me.
Sorry.
Waiter, the whole
sorry, Janice. I didn't mean to. I can explain.
So they drop them back off at their lab, and on the bridge they just continue on to shore leave. Off we go.
So hopefully we'll get to shore leave next episode, but in the meantime, I guess we could still have a nice day on Paris on the holodeck. So,
Yeah, I mean, if by shore leave you mean mysterious mining planets that have long since abandoned, and a fun trip back to Earth.
That's the same thing as a shore leave adventure, right?
Yeah. Okay. Do we figure out how to talk more about time dilations or interpersonal conflict?
Well,
in the love
I guess
triangles?
my first thought was actually about multi-dimensional universes in sci-fi plots, but we can do one of the others too first.
I mean, that would work too. I honestly have very little for this. I haven't thought of much. So much of this episode is taken up with a stupid love triangle that we should be over by now. It's the frickin' future. Like, get over it. You're both obsessed with being stood up 20 years ago.
Picard could have a very, I guess, Starfleet sort of vibe on it as well, because later in the series he's like, I'm the captain, I have to have a certain distance between me and everyone else around me, and you could potentially have that sort of introduced here in as his sort of excuse not to address the love triangle stuff, and so you leave Janice sort of unfulfilled in terms of trying to come to terms with all of this, because Picard's decided that this is as he said, kind of self-indulgent to sort of dwell in the past like that, but maybe by the end of the episode, after they've had this run-in with time travel messing with things, that maybe it is okay to have a second chance, even if it's not going to go anywhere.
I do feel like it would have been a more interesting episode to me if she was upset for some reason. That would have been a more sexist episode, I guess, if only one of them was upset. But if she was upset for some reason, and maybe he was upset too, but instead of dealing with a bunch of interpersonal junk, like, you know what? We're kind of trying to keep the universe from being ripped apart right now.
I guess we could still have the love triangle plot as is. We just need to put some things around it to make it clear that the resolving the time fracture stuff is ongoing, and that will be resolved, but we have to wait a certain amount of time. So we have a certain amount of time where we're just stuck waiting, and we're still here, so might as well talk about this stuff here. And could even have some of the time repeating stuff factor in, where at one moment they start having the conversation and they start into a fight, and then one of them turns their back on the other, and the other one is like this, that, the other thing, and then they turn to look at each other again, but there's another copy of them here having the same argument, and they just look at it and like, well, maybe this is all really silly, actually.
Yeah, that'd be great if they combined the two. And it's like, seeing this from the outside,
maybe we should, be honest with each other. And, Picard, you could have that certain standoffish sort of thing I mentioned. But, Janice is like, hiding behind that's not going to solve anything for either of us. So maybe we should be adults and just kind of confront it. And that there is some unresolved stuff there, and it'd be nice to be able to say, it's not going to happen from this point forward because, she's married and he's kind of being Picard. But it's all the same, they're maybe both sorry for what happened. She was, stood up in this version of the episode, but, maybe there was, something that, spooked Picard, and so she's sorry about that. But Picard's also like, I shouldn't have been spooked, so, sorry about that. So And, it's maybe not going to be a very, great, satisfying sort of resolution out of it, but they kind of come to terms to, all right, maybe they're both kind of being jerks to a certain degree, but Picard maybe a little bit more so.
I suppose that even though we can rewrite this episode better in 10 minutes, which could be a little bit, I don't know, lenient on it because it was literally written over the phone during a writer's strike.
And so, it kind of lifting, generic love triangle, love plot and pasting in here. And it's like, oh, we also need something Star Trek-y. It's to be kind of expected that things are going to be a little bit of a mess.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting... I don't know how I feel about this because it was she, as the writer, refused to work during a strike. So the producer got her on the phone and went, well, what do you think of this line? So,
Can I keep going back to wave my sign, please? Come on. I'm trying to get, enough money to, live.
What's you got there? Interdimensional shit?
Yes, I guess this kind of goes to maybe not necessarily the science of it, because, I think we've touched a little bit on that previously, but how it kind of can be used and abused well in fiction. That if you start introducing a multiverse, you could very easily fall into the trap that, all right, if there's a multi-dimensional nonsense out there where every other possibility that has ever, maybe possibly happened has happened, then why do we care about this timeline? Tell me, Captain, why?
Well, because what else are you going to do?
Well, that's sort of the obvious answer, but, in terms of, this is the show we are putting together, so that's the one we're going to be following. But, for people, invested in the fiction of the universe and all that, it can very easily lead to a certain, cynical sort of, interpretation of the setting, which...
Well, I think that you
don't want.
that you have two ways that they've dealt with this overall. You kind of, just popping it in there for fun every now and then is fine. They started overusing it after a while. Mm-hmm. Having the, here's the random mirror universe, or here's the random backward universe. That's fun, and they made it pretty clear that traveling between one and the other is either completely uncontrollable and accidental or takes a massive amount of effort. So, of course, it's not going to happen all the time, and you don't have backup universes everywhere.
That's kind of one of the things I, got a little unhappy with Stargate is, there's a complete multiverse out there where maybe not every possibility has happened, but a good number of them have. And you could maybe blame time travelers causing, time splitting or something like that, because that's also a thing in Stargate. But it also kind of leads to the question of, all right, so if the universe we've been following, is going to be, the big bad's going to win, we could potentially just hop over to one where they don't exist, or they've already lost ages ago, or, we have the means to save the day in our universe, and we're just going to borrow whatever super tech it is to do it. And it's very much a opportunity for a Deus Ex Machina of the kind of unsatisfactory sort, because you're not really kind of needing to invest anything in this sort of cop-out by having this be a possibility. But I guess in this particular episode, the sort of multi-universe stuff is only being sort of hinted at, where, in other sort of, later Star Trek, it's a little bit more, directly, obviously a thing. So, the Kelvin universe and this universe are happening at the same time, and maybe we'll meet up someday.
Well, I think that, it got overused in Star Trek, and if you want to actually have it, you have three possibilities. You have what they were doing in Star Trek, which is sometimes this happens, but you have absolutely no control over it, so you still care about the prime thing because you can't actually move them around. Mm-hmm. They tried to do that a little bit in Stargate, but they let them control the thing too much eventually.
At least they broke them.
Then you have the other two things, which are shows and things that deal with it as their primary sci-fi thing and use that to explore it. And I think the two that are doing that right now are Rick and Morty and Everything Everywhere All at Once. And they actually take completely opposite viewpoints on the multiverse on caring about the prime timeline, etc., in the multiverse settings. As Rick and Morty does the sort of nihilism thing of nothing really matters because there's just too much going on. The universe is big, there's too many of us, and nothing actually matters, so do whatever we want.
Which
because
is,
who cares?
oddly enough, the antagonist sort of starting view in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Because Everything Everywhere All at Once, possible minor spoilers, you should definitely see the movie. I'm going to not go into story stuff, but, you know. Overall, you know, the antagonist starts out nihilistic, and by the end, you have your main character combat it with absurdism. Because, yes, everything's big and complicated and too much to actually care about, but, you know, that frees you up to do whatever. Yeah. So, actually, great.
It should be a liberation, not a chain to a dark place. So, yeah, check out the film. I'd highly recommend it. And it is probably my favorite take on multi-universe situations in media at all. You know, with like maybe Sliders being number 2 there.
You also should definitely look at, if you have any interest in movie making at all, find any of the behind the scenes stuff, because they made that movie on like an indie budget.
Fantastic. And it could very easily have been like a small stage play. You know, few number of actors, you know, but all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And yeah, it's fantastic. So I don't want to, I'm tempted to get one. Keep me from giving any spoilers.
I think you're right. You can't actually care about your prime timeline if you have just one timeline over, we have exactly the same thing. Literally exactly the same thing. Except, you know, 700 years ago, that one bird sneezed that one time. Which is how your multiverse stuff works. Yeah.
You know, there are maybe ways to sort of, I guess, pare down the branching to a certain degree, where, you know, only certain types of branching is allowed. I believe Futurama sort of had a little bit of a joke on that, where it's like, okay, we've created a portal to another universe, and in this one, every time we flipped a coin for anything, it went the other way. So, you know, these minor decisions were flipped. Everything else is exactly the same. So, you know, but that would be a very kind of silly sort of thing to include in Star Trek, though Star Trek can be very silly sometimes. It very much works in Futurama, though. So, you know, another sort of way to sort of, I guess, make it less of a problem is, you know, that in terms of, you know, the universe existing, you know, all the other, you know, multidimensional stuff there is a possibility, but not actually a reality, unless there is some sort of fracture like this going on. And it will, you know, the other universes will only exist until this fracture is repaired, and then they'll all kind of wrap into each other and will continue like nothing ever happened. That is, you know, sort of one way to make, you know, multi-universe stuff a component of your fiction without it being a constant you actually have to be worrying about. And you don't have to worry about people jumping in from another dimension to kidnap you either.
I did think what's kind of interesting with this one is, you know, they mention alternate dimension, which we've now come to understand as multi-universe stuff, because that's what all science fiction has gravitated toward. Oh. But it used to just be random weird stuff. It didn't necessarily mean alternate timeline or alternate history. It was just ununderstandable other thing. Because the idea that you have in physics, that there are more dimensions than the normal, you know, 3 or 4 or however you're counting that we can interact with, freaks some people out, and you get into some weird Lovecraftian
not
nonsense.
Just you know, too many tentacles. The geometries that break your mind, sort of stuff there.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose there is I guess one way to sort of think about things in the sort of physics side of things here, in that, you know, other dimensions aren't different, you know, domains of choices or quantum probabilities or whatever, but, you know, space-times that, you know, exist but where the rules of physics are different. And this is sort of a string theory adjacent sort of idea that I'm talking about here, where you got a set of variables that can be sort of tweaked one way or the other, where you're going to be having very much a complete universe, but gravity is slightly different, or electromagnetism, has slightly weaker or stronger or something like that. And very easily, if you adjust any of these things away from what they are in our universe, you get a cosmos that is incompatible with human life, but who knows what it might generate instead. And it could be a lifeless universe where there's not even stars, or it could be some sort of weird plasma environment, but it's not collapsing on itself somehow. Maybe some sort of alternative form of life can develop in that, and completely different existence can be the result. And each one of these different rule possibilities is then potentially thinking about these same problems themselves there somewhere in deep inside. It also makes traveling between them a little difficult because, if you take your spaceship over there, your spaceship's engine stopped working, your blood pH is suddenly off, and also all the neurotransmitters in your brain, stop firing properly because, electromagnetism is just a little bit weaker here, and so it's unable to get through certain bits of the chemistry involved there. And so suddenly you just find yourself not working right anymore. That'd be a bad way to go.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't go to places where physics doesn't work the same way. It's not going to turn out well for you.
Exactly. So yeah, having a multi-universe situation in in reality or fiction like that does make things a little simpler in terms of picking which one you find relevant.
It is somehow interesting that whenever you do in sci-fi a multi-universe thing, the thing that always changes is human decision making.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one and only thing that has ever altered reality in any of these things.
It's a little self-centered, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the other thing you kind of touched on way earlier is this is, I believe it's the first time in any Star Trek that we've encountered a time loop.
I think so, actually. Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's not really used well. Like you said, like you were postulating of how it could be incorporated into the B plot, A plot. It's unclear which one the love triangle is supposed to be. But the time loop in this is very completely isolated. It's just shown. It does a couple of interesting visual tricks, but they don't interact with it particularly. It's just the problem annoyance that they need to solve. And time loop fiction was around at this time period. It's been around since probably around the 1950s, 60s, though it was few and far between as far as sci-fi stories go. And a lot of it is an exploration of whether or not you can change things knowing what's going to happen. It's sort of a meditation on determinism.
If you know the future, are you fated to repeat it? And if not, what does that mean?
And we'll get more of a chance to talk about this later. That's interesting to look at it now as, here's a time loop, it's an issue. We need to deal with it. Whereas later things, especially incarnations of time loops that happened in a few years after the movie Groundhog Day really, really popularized the time loop narrative, you have now interactive time loops. The characters are aware of the time loop or become aware of the time loop at some point and need to utilize the mechanics of the time loop to learn or grow or solve a puzzle or something.
I recall, I didn't see it, but I saw a trailer a couple of years ago about a movie where a girl was, I think it's called Happy Death Day, where she keeps getting murdered but comes back and repeats the loop again.
Yes, I haven't gotten a chance to see that, but Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2 are supposed to be amazing time loop horror movies, which I haven't gotten a chance to see, but there are some of these other, shoestring budget indie projects that are just made super, super well.
So if you were stuck in a time loop, Gepwin, and someone was trying to murder you, what would you do?
I don't know. Depends on what it was going on. You could just screw around. Might be fun. I feel like my favorite time loop thing overall, which we'll talk about time loops a lot more, but the one Stargate where they got bored halfway through and just spent who knows however many years randomly screwing around, because if stuff resets every day, you don't have any consequences to your actions at all.
So I'm going to resign and kiss Carter and time loop reset.
Play golf. Yeah.
Poor Teal keeps getting slammed in the face by the door.
Probably the best time loop episode of sci-fi shows overall.
Yes. But
at least my favorite.
But that's just how I feel about that. Don't you agree? Wherever the line was. Yeah, what do you think?
What do you think?
And of course, with the Fruit Loops there, and they're glued on the spoon to make sure it would go the same way each time. So we're slipping over to Stargate again. Do we got anything else to touch on here?
No, I don't think so. The only disappointment with Stargate is that we're going to have to at some point do isolated episodes, because there's no way we can do an interconnected 10-year-long overarching plot line that circles back on itself 6 times. And then as a spin-off show.
I still need to write a Stargate reboot pilot. Anyway. So I guess maybe one thing. What's your opinion on love triangles?
I usually dislike them overall. It's just a way to disappoint everyone. They're also usually love V's.
Like, come on, have Dr. Paul Manheim go after Picard. Do it, you cowards.
My only actual favorite one, which is another good sci-fi show, but one that we definitely won't be able to talk about easily, especially with YouTube stuff, is from Sense8, where minor spoilers. There's a love triangle that's going on. That's like, oh my god, what are they gonna do? Can it be resolved? Turns out everyone's just bi, and it's fine.
Yay! They'll just hop in bed together and everything good. All right, cool.
Yeah, you just go from love triangle to polycule, and it's fine.
Yes.
And I feel like more love triangles should resolve themselves.
Me too,
that
actually.
way.
Yeah. Because it's like there's a simple solution here, guys. Just like get over yourselves, and either admit mutual attraction, or call it off entirely and be all like, yeah, it's fine. I know we have some history, Captain Picard here, but it's been long over. Why are you still dwelling on it?
Yeah, there's an easy way to resolve this love triangle if you're not a coward.
Exactly. And make sure to get data in there too somewhere.
Yeah, then it's a square.
Just a larger polycule,
Yeah, it's a love polyhedron. Yeah.
More triangles.
Oh, it's like Trivial Pursuit. You just keep clicking the triangles in together. Eventually you have a circle.
Eventually you win.
All right, I think I'm too tired for this conversation. I'm just going off who knows where. Anyway.
So take us somewhere the same but also different.
Yeah, generally when we start rambling incoherently, it's time for the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! Hey everybody, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show, and also hello everyone, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show, where we have several contestants who have been racking up various points here in order to get some prizes handed to them. So let's get out to the handing out the prizes bit. Did I say that twice? Anyway, the first prize is the Time Warp Prize, which goes to Dr. Manheim for creating a temporal instability that seems to link diverged causal realities and cause a bit of a looping effect where you can meet yourself and be confused about it. What does he win, Gepwin?
Dr. Manheim gets to have himself as a new research assistant. I feel like that would just solve a lot of these problems. He can have fun. His wife can get more attention because they can, share duties and responsibilities and whatnot. There's an easy solution here, and it's time travel.
Yes, time travel, get yourself multiple versions of yourself, and I think that Stargate did something similar to this as well. Anyway, the second prize is the Time Warp Prize, which goes to Picard and company for meeting themselves in an awkward turbolift encounter. What do they win, Gepwin?
They win Muzak. These are very awkward elevators, and you can't even listen to a bad version of Girl from Ipanema.
An instrumental version that occasionally has vocals for some reason, but not the ones that from the original song. Anyway, the final and third prize here is also the first prize, which is also the second prize, the Time Warp, which goes to Data and Data and Data for there being too many datas. And what do they win, Gepwin, for doing the Time Warp again?
Data, and Data win more datas. You never have too many datas. We'll see later. We have a fistful of datas. We have multiple datas. They keep bringing data back. They just hinted that there's another danged frickin' Soong in frickin' Star Trek Prodigy. This is just a frickin' conspiracy to get Brent Spiner acting gigs. I feel like it's.
Who would have thought that Star Trek would eventually turn into the Brent Spiner show for all eternity? Oh.
Yeah, this basically just is the foreshadowing of literally every Star Trek property for the next 100
Brent
years.
Spiner.
It's just Data, Soong, Data. Eventually, the entire show will just be Brent Spiner on a green screen, freaking playing every character.
I think we're going to have a crossover with the Congress at this rate in order to get that to happen. But that's all I got here for prizes, Gepwin. So Gepwin, that's all I got here for prizes. So make sure to take this out of here before I continue to hand out more prizes for the Time Warp again to myself. Wait. Help me, Gepwin.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us, and come next time for Let's Do the Time Warp Again.
Let's do the Time Warp again.
That was like 50 episodes ago. Anyway.
It was only before TNG.
Thank you for joining us on the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! All right, we've gotten really silly here. Really.
I'm recording late. It's okay. We don't get to stay silly, or we do, because next week they're really trying. Oh my God, they're trying so hard to make this serious and hard hitting and mysterious, and it's just a big puppet.
Big gooey puppet.
Big puppet.
Also, a guy's head explodes.
Yeah, this freaked me out when I was a kid. I remember this freaked me out because this is just Star Trek. It's great, and then all of a sudden, this exploding chest cavity.
Yes, it's like just keep shooting it. Oh gosh, that's you.
Yeah. Like, what's going on? Oh, they're eating bugs? That's kind of fun. Oh my God, they melted a guy.
Yes. Well, I guess if you're going to ever melt a guy, this is a good reason for it.
Yeah. It's still pretty unexpected for a little tiny child me who was watching Star Trek with the family.
Holy crap, what's going on? Oh. So yeah, conspiracy.
Yeah. So next time, you remember all the stuff that they set up in Coming of Age.
Oh.
You don't? Really?
Yeah.
You don't remember that episode at all? You don't even remember that was the name of an episode that happened and we covered a couple of weeks back?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, it was the one where Wesley was a major player. Still not ringing any bells? Okay.
Yeah. Then, somehow the best edited scene of the entire first season. But nope, Now we're paying off something that was set up in an episode that no one remembers. So
yeah. So check it out.
Also, it's the weird not season finale.
Yes, because there's one more episode after, right?
Yeah, a much better season finale, a much better episode. But it's weird because this really seems like they wanted it to be a season finale.
And later they'll figure out, we can get the series renewed potentially by having cliffhangers, but they weren't quite there in terms of their bravery yet. Yeah.
No, not yet. So yeah, next time, exploding chests.
Kaboom! Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, neck nipples for everyone! You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.